everyone. We are the Gratitude Girls.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Rah-rah is in the house. I'm Catherine Asaro Myers. I am with you this evening with my wonderful Gratitude Girls partner, and you're here joining us for our Gratitude Girls training. This evening, we have a very interesting subject, and that subject is intuition. Now, we all have it. Some of us sort of tap into it more than others. Some of us take it for granted. Some of us just know what to do. When it comes to business, we really need to use this skill. It's there. You wake up in the morning, you do things. You have an intuition. You don't wake up and just lean forward. You know to sit up, you know to put one foot in front of the other, whether you're taking a deep breath or meditating. We have this intuition. We know what to do. So tonight we would like to give you two perspectives. Two. Ta-da! And that would be a perspective from Laurie and a perspective from me. Let's call it the US and the Canadian perspective, although I feel like I'm in both because I'm American. So let's give a perspective for business and perspective as it is right now. So I'll give you the Canadian version and say, how do we use that? But Laurie, let me ask you first. When it comes to, you want to ask me first? Go ahead. What do you want? Whatever you want. My intuition tells me to let you choose.
Yeah, so two things. So we have intuition, that we use personally, like when we meet someone or when we go somewhere and we decide we don't want to go there. And then we have it kind of in business too. So tell a story from like both sides.
Okay, so personal first. Okay, so on the don't side or the do side?
Either.
Okay, super. So I go a lot of places. We travel, we get in the car, we take appointments, we go all over. And when we make a schedule, we look at what's available. But my intuition tells me that when I'm creating my schedule, and I have what I do on Mondays and what I do on Tuesdays and what I do in the morning, I know all of that. I know where I'm going and when I do what certain activities, the activities that are out and the activities that are personal for my exercise, my yoga and things like that. But I do need to use my intuition when I'm creating something, not just based on a block of time, like, oh, it's 5 o'clock and this is what I do, and it's 6 o'clock. I use my intuition. So on a personal side, if I don't feel like something is right, I will not go, even if it's scheduled. I will turn around and walk out. Because if it's my yoga class and maybe I'm just feeling something, I'm thinking, you know what, or I'm sneezing, or I don't think I should be in the room, I will use my intuition regardless, and I will do an about face, and I will go and do something else regarding an activity or personal time. Maybe I'll just take a walk. So what I make sure I do is I listen to my body. I take those signs that I get inside. I listen to the voices. I feel the vibrations. And if it's not right, I don't do it. If it feels like it has any shape or form of negativity, I'm out of there. Now, what I mean by that is I do not invite that, because if you're the next person I come and see or speak to, then I'm going to bring that to you, even if I don't want to, because those things are sticky. So I do that clearing of the energy. So on a personal side, I use my intuition, even though something is right there, even if it's a walk, it just doesn't feel right. I'll turn around and I'll go somewhere else. So hopefully that answers your question about something personal. Business. So I'm a huge strategist. I believe that strategy is everything. If you wake up and you do something without a plan, good luck. Doesn't mean I'm not adventurous or I can't do something on the spur of the moment, but I truly am best when I can strategize something. So in business, I take it extremely seriously, the time that I have with myself to think and strategize about something. And if I do that as my standard baseline activity, I know where I'm going and I can move and shift and flow. If I don't have time for that, there's like something in my head that goes, I need to do something else before I do that. I listen to my intuition. I absolutely need meditation time to strategize and tap into my intuition. When I go into my practice room or my practice space, I leave my phone. It's not allowed in the room. I leave everything. And in an hour or an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and a half session, I can solve the problems that were on top of my head. I can take a client scenario. I can take my scenario and I can work through it. I let it go right through. I don't percolate it. I let it go. I move it through. So the strategy is very important for me, and intuition is something that I believe is a very great and it's a strong skill set for me. I work on it. It's a skill set that I sharpen as if it were a knife or whatever in my tool bag. If I were a chef, I would want to keep that skill very sharp and very close to the top of everything that I would be able to have. So it is important to me. I love that you asked me about personal and business, because how you do anything is how you do everything. So that's something we want to think about with ourselves as well. Did I answer your question?
You did, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to think about that. So to our audience, think about the question that Laurie asked me and ask yourself that question. And before I get on to my question with Laurie, if you want to discuss your answer because you want to learn how to develop a strategy, or you are a strategist as well and you want to run that by us, you get in touch with us by all means, and we'll be happy to make ourselves available to you for, we'll do a Zoom or whatever. We won't do a Facebook Live. It'll be a private conversation. We'll talk to you about that, and we'll share that with you so we can have a bit of a training session. And that's our gift from us to you for watching this Facebook Live. Okay, Laurie, here's my question. So regarding intuition, I'll ask you two different questions, one and then the other. Have you ever ignored your intuition and wish you hadn't? And tell us about it.
I don't know. I rely on my intuition a lot too. I don't know that I've ever. Okay, well, I'll tell you a story where I almost did, and then I retreated and went back to my intuition. And so back when the kids were younger, and I was getting a lot of speaking engagements, but I would always have the kids with me, right? They used to go with me to all the stuff. So we would drive everywhere that I was called to speak. It didn't matter pretty much how far it was because I had 3 kids to take with. And so we would drive, and the kids would know that I always, before we got off at an exit, especially at night, but even anywhere traveling, at the time the kids were much younger. And I would always pray before I get off the exit, and I would go by my feeling. And I remember a time where pretty much all the kids were saying, "Mom, we need to stop and go to the restroom." And I prayed over this exit, and I felt uneasy about it. And I was like, and the kids were whining, and I needed to go. And so I was like, that's crazy. I'm going to get off at this exit. I mean, got 3 kids with us, 2 of them are boys, even though they're younger, they can save us, right?
Yes.
And so get off the exit. And literally as I was getting off the exit, just that kind of like heaviness, like started to overwhelm me. And to where when I got to the stop at the exit and to go left or right to, stop at a gas station or whatever, it just like was really like overwhelming. Like I'm getting chills even now thinking about it. And this was like 10 years ago. And I was just like, it's not happening. I don't care if your kids pee in your pants. It's not happening. I don't feel comfortable. And I got right back on the interstate, and I was like, we'll stop at the next exit. If we have to buy new clothes, so be it, but I'm not stopping. And so I guess that's a time that I almost ignored it, but I didn't. And, and to this day, I don't know if something would have happened or not, but that was it. It was my intuition, and was strongly loud and clear that day, probably clearer than I've ever had it before, and to where I was just like, absolutely not.
Wow. As you were telling me the story, I was like getting hot and uncomfortable. You were right. 10 years later, you absolutely were right not taking that exit. I can feel it. Wow. Good question. Good answer, Laurie. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Now let's talk about, how do you keep your edge with your intuition? What do you do to keep that sharp? What do you do to stay in touch? What do you do to keep believing that intuition is the thing you should listen to?
Yeah. Good question. So I always think, I read all the time. So I'm always sharpening my skills, so to speak, in all areas. I love to read. I read usually about a book a week. And, but I always, I take that time. So I schedule my day, you know me, I'm huge with my calendar and with my schedule. And so I schedule in 15-minute time slots to take breaks. And in those breaks, it might be to pray over or meditate over whatever I'm doing next. And it's also to kind of take the, like what we do on the Gratitude Girl show a lot, right? You breathe in and breathe out, and just take that resting moment and kind of clearing your mind and the air around you, right? Before you go into that next thing. So that way you're also not pulling in anything from your last appointment or your last, relationship, that your interaction with someone or whatever. You're not pulling something into the next thing. You're clearing the space, right, before you go into the next one. So I think that's really huge too. And just, and then just taking that moment to just kind of recenter yourself and, and release and get ready, that's it. So you can go into the next thing, whether it's with a person or with in business or with a project or whatever, and just be fresh and be all there,
That's a good tip. I have a surprise question for you. I know you love those. So is there something that you do with your intuition that you've never told anyone? And I'll be happy to share as well. I don't, wasn't planning on it, but is there anything that you do with your intuition that you haven't told anyone that is like a really good tip or secret? Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
I don't know if there's anything that I've never told someone, because I'm pretty, you know me, I'm pretty transparent with pretty much everything that I do. So, but yeah, it's just, I do, I practice the deep breathing, in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I practice prayer, and I practice meditation, and I don't really care who's around to see it or do it. If I'm in a public place, it still happens, and, whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think there's anything I've never told anybody.
Well, you just told us that you don't care who's around. I like hearing that. Now I know that about you. I think that's awesome. You do what you do regardless of who's around, and that's a level of confidence that we all need to tap into. I have a little thing that I do. My close friends, you might know that about me. If I want to have a conversation with you and you're not around, I'll have it with you even if I'm not around with you. Like, I will have that emotion and I will imagine that you're there. And if I'm sending you love or I'm sending you healing, if you say maybe you're not feeling well or you're coughing or you haven't slept, or if I know something, or even if you haven't spoken to me and I want to send you something, I will sit in that space and I will send that to you with the intention of bringing you love and gratitude and possibilities. And if I were really missing you and I couldn't speak with you, I would sit there and I would send that to you, and you'd probably kind of connect with me and say, hey, I'm just checking out, and it would happen. Even if we didn't say, I don't know why I was thinking about you, and I will communicate that with you or whomever. And by doing that, I don't miss anybody because I'm always in touch with those who are close to my heart. And I always allow them to live in my heart and in my head. So when I'm by myself, I'm really not by myself. Okay, so as far as the training goes, let me tell you, I truly believe that we need to tap into our intuition, and we use this in business and we use this in our personal life. And if you would like to know a little bit more about why we believe it's so important, aside from this few minutes that we shared with you tonight, Laurie and I invite you and welcome you to communicate with us, set up a call, text us. We have a schedule with 15-minute blocks, 30-minute blocks, and we always have something that we can fit in. One thing that my intuition tells me is that if you're feeling shy about this, just reach out, step out of your comfort zone and say, I want to talk to you about intuition. You probably have something amazing to teach us and share with us. And we are very willing to hear and listen and learn. And if you think that we can do the same with you, then by all means, please reach out to us, because Laurie and I are understanding gratitude girls. And the training that we offer is because we are trained by you every day. The questions that you ask us, or it makes us better people and makes us better coaches and trainers. So Laurie, on that note, I'll pass it over to you and say this was an awesome evening tonight. And I love working with our intuition.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. And I want to say one more thing that I thought of when you were just saying that is it's actually a training that I listened to yesterday. And so, I'm always I'm reading books, or I'm always listening to trainings also when I drive, that, that car university type thing, university on wheels. And, but anyways, and it's funny because this training was of this guy said, and I don't remember who it was by because I have it automatic on my phone. It automatically sinks in. But he said that he visualizes, for example, Abraham Lincoln is sitting at his table with him. And he's having a conversation with him. And he's telling him that he wants to have, all his wisdom and the different attributes that he believes Abraham Lincoln has. He wants him to teach them to him. And so he talks and has this conversation with him just as if he's there, and so kind of building that relationship of, and getting that from him. And then he'll pick someone else that is, that he wants to learn something from, and he'll talk about having them there and right there with him. And so it's interesting that you said that tonight, having people right there at your table, whether they're really there or not, and then I just listened to that yesterday. So that was interesting.
We can surprise each other all day long. Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to hear that person that you're listening to, if you can share that information or link with me. I'd like to hear that.
I will, yes.
Okay, good. Good. Thank you.
Well, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in with us. And if you would like to reach out to us, like she said, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/gratitudegirls, and hit the message button there. When you do that, it goes right to both of us, so that way we can review it and get back with you. Make sure you leave us your contact information so we know how to get a hold of you. Talk to you soon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.
Good night.